Yes, good morning and welcome again. Dear President, the members of ECNS and partner societies, faculty members, valued guests and researchers from 10 different countries, you're all welcome to Turkey. Firstly, let us recall how this story began. In 1998, the American Medical EEG Association and the American Psychiatric Electrophysiology Association merged to form the EEG and Clinical Neuroscience Study Society, the ECNS. The original goal of the association, and still a primary function of the ECNS, is to further the clinical practice of classical electroencephalography from the professional, scientific, and economic standpoints. For his scientific contributions, studies matching with the scope of the society in the field of neuropsychiatry, Professor Tarhan was elected to the EGN Clinical Society Board of Directors. Since then, Üsküdar University, ECNS, and partner societies, namely International Society for Brain Electromagnetic Topography, so-called as ISPET, International Society for Functional Source Imaging, ISFSI, International Society for Neuroimaging, and in Psychiatry, ISNIP, became strategic partners within the frame of the program Brain Research through developing innovative neurotechnology initiative, which is defined as a fabulous project which was allocated $100 million by the term President Barack Obama. On May 19, 2015, the president of Üsküdar University, Professor Tarhan, met with Neurotechnology Initiative Committee chairman at the White House in Washington, D.C. and signed the protocol to present Turkey in the project. Now we are honored to have you all here in the city, Istanbul, connecting the continents with the Congress topic, the meeting point of neuroelectrophysiology and genetics. Welcome to our city, Istanbul. Within the scope of the 6th Basic Clinical and Multimodal Imaging BaCI Conference, we focus on revealing the enthusiasm and capacity of partner institutions to contribute to brain research and mapping studies, disease prevention, and lowering the cost of diseases. Multimodal approaches are in routine use in order to overcome the problems related to reproducibility, sensitivity, specificity, and other statistical points. The next obvious frontier is the genetic basis of the electrophysiological markers, which will be very important to explore the state-trait dependent dichotomy. As such, we have focused this conference to shed light on the meeting point of the electrophysiology and genetics. Since our establishment, we, as Üsküdar University, are conducting continuous and intensive studies to understand human through a behavioral science-oriented education. We are moving quickly and strongly towards our goal to become the brain center of Turkey. As a young and new university, it's our pride to host you here all at Üsküdar University. You're all welcome to our university.
Gençlerimiz her şeyin en iyisini hak eder. İşte bu bilinç ve inançla çıktık yola. İstedik ki gelecek daima onlardan yana olsun. Bu bakış açısıyla kurulduğumuz ilk günden beri çok önemli bir hedefimiz vardı. Gençlerimizi geleceğe eksiksiz şekilde hazırlamak. Ne mutlu bize ki Türkiye'nin beyin üssü Üsküdar Üniversitesi olarak hedefimize emin adımlarla ilerliyor, binlerce gencimizin yarınlarına değer katıyoruz. Bugün sağlık alanındaki çeyrek asırlık tecrübemizle Türkiye'nin ilk ve tek davranış bilimleri, sağlık ve mühendislik temalı üniversitesi konumundayız. Bu çok değerli unvana sahip olmanın haklı gururunu yaşıyor, dünya çapında bir üniversite olma yolunda başarı ve özgüvenle yürüyoruz. Bilimin ışığını başucundan ayırmayan bir üniversite olarak hem ulusal hem de uluslararası ölçekte çağdaş, donanımlı, sorgulayan, araştıran, bilim üreten gençler yetiştiriyoruz. Her birinin parlak bir geleceğe sahip olabilmesi için ilgi ve özveriyle çalışıyoruz. Bir üniversite 5 yerleşke anlayışımızla biz, hayatın merkezinde şehirle iç içe bir üniversiteyiz. İstanbul'un farklı noktalarından kolaylıkla ulaşılabilen yerleşkelerimizle öğrencilerimize şehrin dinamik temposundan kopmadıkları eşsiz bir kampüs deneyimi sağlıyoruz. Öğrencilerimize teorik ve pratik bilgiyi bir bütün olarak sunuyoruz. Yapay zekadan farmakogenetiğe kadar pek çok farklı alana yönelik 120'den fazla laboratuvar ve araştırma merkezimiz, televizyon ve radyo stüdyolarımız, ileri teknolojiye sahip dersliklerimiz ve daha birçok modern altyapı özelliğimizle dünya standartlarında bir üniversiteyiz. 6 fakülte, 1 sağlık hizmetleri meslek yüksekokulu ve 5 enstitümüzde hepsi alanlarında yetkin, 1000'i aşkın güçlü akademik ve idari kadromuzla 4 temel ilkemiz olan eleştirilebilirlik, özgürlükçülük, çoğulculuk ve katılımcılığı yüksek öğretimin her alanında uyguluyoruz. Tıp, diş, mühendislik ve doğa bilimleri, iletişim, sağlık bilimleri, insan ve toplum bilimleri alanlarında lisans, Sağlık Hizmetleri Meslek Yüksekokulu ön lisans programımızla öğrencilerimizin yanındayız. Yüksek lisans ve doktora programlarındaysa bağımlılık ve adli bilimlerden tasavvuf araştırmalarına kadar farklı branşlara yönelik geniş bir yelpazeye sahibiz. Toplamda 25.000 öğrencimizle yüksek öğretimde çığır açmaya devam ediyor, 11. yılımızı geride bırakırken verdiğimiz 35.000 mezunumuzla da gurur duyuyoruz. Yurt dışındaki birçok saygın üniversiteden önce dünyada ilk kez hayata geçirdiğimiz pozitif psikoloji gibi derslerin yanı sıra girişimcilik ve üniversite kültürü dersimizle öne çıkıyoruz. Yüzlerce ulusal ve uluslararası çapta etkinlikle öğrencilerimizin iyi birer dünya vatandaşı olmalarını amaçlıyoruz. Türkiye'nin ilk bilim ve fikir festivali ve yüksek insani değerler ödülleri gibi geleneksel hale getirdiğimiz geniş kapsamlı etkinlikler ve sosyal sorumluluk projeleriyle kurumsal çalışmalarımızı sosyo-kültürel alanlara da yayıyoruz. Mutlu Yuva, Haydi Tut Elimi Derneği gibi sivil toplum kuruluşlarıyla sevgi ve güven dolu bir geleceğe katkıda bulunuyoruz. Bilim ve uygulama ortağımız NP İstanbul Hastanesi uzmanlarının desteği sayesinde başarıyla sürdürdüğümüz projelerle yarınlarımız için sağlam temeller inşa ediyoruz. Ar-Ge odaklarımızın yanı sıra Brain Park Teknoloji Transfer Ofisi ve Kuluçka Merkezi gibi teknolojik inovasyonlarla bilimsel çalışmalarda öncü rol üstleniyoruz. Geleceğe yön verecek nesilleri iyi bir eğitimle buluştururken toplumu bilgilendirme ve bilgiyi ürüne dönüştürme misyonumuz çerçevesinde de çok önemli çalışmalar yürütüyoruz. Dünyanın 96 ülkesinden 3500'ü aşkın uluslararası öğrencimizle farklı medeniyetleri Üsküdar'ın bilim çatısı altında buluşturuyoruz. Küresel ölçekte de kaliteye büyük önem veriyoruz. Araştırma ve eğitim faaliyetlerindeki başarılarımızı Times Higher Education ve Shimago Rankings gibi uluslararası derecelendirme kuruluşlarından aldığımız sıralamalarla taçlandırıyoruz. Türk Quality marka destek programına dahil olarak ülkemizi yurt dışında da en iyi şekilde tanıtmayı amaçlıyoruz. Ayrıca spordan iletişime, Ar-Ge'den geleceğe ışık tutacak bilimsel araştırmalara kadar öğrencilerimizin başarılarını destekleyerek gelişime yatırım yapıyoruz. Kurucu rektörümüz ve yönetim üst kurulu başkanımız Profesör Doktor Nevzat Tarhan'ın öncülüğünde G20 zirvesine ev sahipliği yapan ilk ve tek Türk üniversitesi olarak beyin konusundaki çalışmalarımıza küresel çapta devam ediyoruz. Geleceğin bilgili ve donanımlı hekimlerini yetiştirdiğimiz tıp fakültemizde afiliye hastanemiz NP İstanbul Hastanesi ile sürekli işbirliği içindeyiz. Ayrıca sağlık ve uygulama merkezlerimiz olan NP Feneryolu ve NP Etiler Tıp Merkezimizin yanı sıra gülümseten kalite mottosuyla hizmete giren Üsküdar Diş Hastanemizle geniş uygulama ve staj olanakları sağlıyoruz. Geleceğini tercihlerin şekillendirir. Keşkelerle değil, iyi kilerle dolu bir gelecek için tercih hakkını doğru kullan, yarınlara Üsküdar'dan odaklan. Türkiye'nin beyin üssü, Üsküdar Üniversitesi.
In this scientific journey, the brain base of Turkey, Üsküdar University, has many national and international companions. Within the partners, we have strong scientific bonds with MP Istanbul Brain Hospital, which is not only the world's first accredited brain hospital, but also the second brain hospital in Europe. Since cooperation is important not only for institutions, but also for scientists, we set up research teams under neuroscience title with clinicians from the hospital and engineers from the university in order to cross-pollinate ideas, Let's watch the 20th anniversary video of MP Istanbul Brain Hospital.
This is the story of a 20-year experience in health, constantly evolving, renewing human health. This is the achievement of those who give all their effort for every single brain cell, for those who break sweat with hope to write new stories. This is the story of those who have knowledge, interest, and goodness, the investors in health through the healing effect of art. This is the energy of those who bring world's technology under one structure, those who take inspiration from brain and power from science. Thanks to those who deserve it with our full-fledged service, NP Istanbul, which is the second brain hospital in Europe given its neuroscience-oriented general hospital facilities, has crowned its 20 years experience with its science partner, Üsküdar University Faculty of Medicine. NP Istanbul is 20 years old. To many happy years ahead. Stay healthy.
This huge infrastructure and cooperations of the institutions empowered us to be the leading brain base in the region. For the last 10 years, Üsküdar University is the only university representing Turkey in G20 meetings, which is having sub-meeting cross group called Neuroscience, Brain, Spine, Mental Health Summits. In 2015, we as Üsküdar University hosted an 20 meeting, and being the president of Middle East Brain Initiative, Professor Tarhan and his colleagues will be in New Delhi on the 7th of September for the upcoming N20 meeting. So let us share our passion for the future with Neuroscience 20.
As humans, we can identify galaxies light years away. We can study particles smaller than an atom, but we still haven't unlocked the mystery of the 3 pounds of matter that sits between our ears. Today, scientists possess the capability to study individual neurons and figure out the main functions of certain areas of the brain, but a human brain contains almost 100 billion neurons, making trillions of connections. So there's this enormous mystery waiting to be unlocked. And the Brain Initiative will change that by giving scientists the tools they need to get a dynamic picture of the brain in action and better understand how we think and how we learn and how we remember. And that knowledge will be transformative.
Watch out your brain. Produce, think, notice, love, liberate, have fun, be assertive, realize the human, change the world. Üsküdar University.
On behalf of ECNS and partner societies, let us share our pleasure to meet here again in Istanbul for the 6th BaCI meeting. Being the leading partner, ECNS is an international scientific and educational organization dedicated to disseminating knowledge regarding the latest scientific advances in various fields. So, covering the neurobehavioral disorders including but not limited to head injury, epilepsy, pain syndromes, movement disorders, cerebrovascular disorders, metabolic and degenerative disorders, thought disorders, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, personality and substance dependence disorders. So to share the vision and the future of the societies, we'll be happy to listen to Dr. Derek. Dr. Derek, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Dr. Derek Fisher. I'm the president of ECNS. And first of all, I want to welcome you to this BaCI meeting in 2023 on behalf of the EEG and Clinical Neuroscience Society and our partner societies, ISNP, ISBET, and IFSFI. We're really, really excited for this meeting, and we're so thankful that you're here to join us. I like to start these things too with, thanks. Putting together a meeting like this involves a lot of effort, a lot of hours. So I want to offer thanks to our hosts here, to our co-organizers, Professor Nevzat Tarhan, Professor Kamal Ari Khan. Thank you very much for putting together this wonderful meeting. I really look forward to the science that we're going to experience here. And I want to offer a thanks to our wonderful hosts at Üsküdar University, including Professor Turker. Thank you. Your hospitality has been so greatly appreciated, and yeah, it's made for a very wonderful experience so far. So this is the sixth BaCI meeting. It is 10 years since the first BaCI meeting in 2013 in Geneva. And it occurred to me that, Istanbul is a particularly appropriate choice for the BaCI meeting. So BaCI is basic and clinical multimodal neuroimaging meeting, okay? So Istanbul, when I think of it, it's where East meets West, right? Where we have ideas from Europe and Asia and truly all over the world coming together to produce a city that's full of beauty, that's full of culture, that's full of amazing food. I've eaten more than my fair share of doner kebabs since I've been here. But we've got this incredible mix that comes together because we're bringing in ideas that complement each other and that support each other. And I think that's what this BaCI meeting does, because what it does is it takes advantage of both the basic and the clinical neuroimaging. Obviously, clinical neuroimaging, clinical neuroscience, very important to support the treatment and medical advances, particularly in our case in psychiatry and neurology and psychology. But in order for these clinical advances to come together, to come to fruition, we need the support and we need the basic neuroscience advances. We need some of those early technological advances that then turn into clinical applications. So by having the two coming together, we again get something wondrous. And to think of this in terms of an example, one of the first things that came to mind was the idea of machine learning. Machine learning obviously being a really important technique nowadays, and can be used to identify neuropsychiatric biomarkers, can be used to identify sort of optimal treatments, used in personalized or stratified psychiatry. But it utilizes, it harnesses those basic science and engineering principles that were developed and then applied. So again, we have this sort of coming together of the basic and clinical. So this meeting, I think you're going to get a lot of both. I encourage you to attend as much as you can and think about things in applied ways. And think, when you're listening to the basic science talks, sometimes you might be thinking about, okay, well, how might this be applied clinically? When you're attending the clinical talks, thinking about, well, what basic science advances might be able to take us to the next step. I don't want to take up any more of your time because we have an incredible program of science ahead of us. And so let's get to the science. Thank you very much, everyone. Welcome to the meeting, and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you, Derek, for that great talk. By the way, the first dinner, we will be having dinner. On behalf of ECNS and partner societies, we had the talk for Derek, and thank you again for your talk, Derek. On the 10th of August, Üsküdar University Senate cordially and unanimously decided to grant Professor Buxbaum the title of honorary doctorate degree for his valuable contribution to neuroscience studies on not only a regional scale but also global scale, and his dedication to the treatment of psychiatric disorders both as a doctor and a scientist. He is the neuro hero in the field with his neuroimaging-based pioneering studies and outstanding citations and epoch-making inventions. So let us know Professor Buxbaum first.
Dr. Monty Buxbaum is an internationally known imaging neuroscientist with 61 years of experience since his first scientific publication in 1962. Dr. Buxbaum has published 517 papers in reviewed scientific journals and was the founding editor of the scientific journal Psychiatry Research for 2 decades. He guided more than 10,000 manuscripts through the review and decision process and accepted scientific papers from 57 countries. Publishing reports of genetic markers predicting drug response and replication of specific Tolerac XY coordinate findings in electrophysiological, fMRI, and positron emission tomography were special interests. Working with David Ingwer and Louis Sokolov, he published FDG PET studies confirming David Ingwer's blood flow finding of hyperfrontality in schizophrenia. He published studies reporting genetic influences of schizophrenia, twins, and families of patients with schizophrenia, Alzheimer's disease, autism, depression, bipolar mania, and anxiety disorders, and traumatic brain injury. His research has focused on individual differences in EEG spectra and positron emission tomography with fluorodeoxyglucose and the dopamine receptor ligand folipride. He published the first study with quantitative statistical analysis of brain metabolism in patients with schizophrenia and depression. Monty S. Buxbaum, MD, has joined the faculty of the University of California, San Diego, as Distinguished Professor of Psychiatry and Radiology. He heads the new NeuroPET Center and leads an effort in developing an expanded research effort with positron emission tomography. Located in Sorrento Valley, about 2 miles north of the main campus of Sorrento Valley Road and close to the UCSD MRI and MEC facilities, the center will be capable of metabolic studies with fluorodeoxyglucose and initial radioligand studies of the serotonin transporter with DSAB, brain amyloid with PIB, and the dopamine receptor with folipride for cortical and thalamic receptors and raclopride for striatal receptors. An expanded on-site radiochemistry facility with developed a repertoire of molecular probes for imaging, coordination with MRI for anatomical analysis of image will be a center feature. Dr. Buxbaum was previously director of the Neuroscience PET laboratory at MT Sinai Hospital in New York City, has been a pioneer in brain mapping studies of schizophrenia, both with topographic EEG and PET explorations of antipsychotic drug effects and the role of the prefrontal cortex and attention in this complex disorder. Since 1980, the primary focus of Dr. Buxbaum's research has been the brain imaging, combining positron emission tomography, computerized EEG, and evoked potential brain mapping, and later magnetic resonance imaging and diffusion tensor imaging. While in the intramural research program at the National Institute of Mental Health, Dr. Buxbaum published some of the first PET studies in psychiatry. In 1982, Dr. Buxbaum left the NIMH to head the Brain Imaging Center at the University of California, Irvine, UCI, and carried out studies on the prefrontal cortex in schizophrenia using FDG PET and EEG. In 1992, Dr. Buxbaum moved to New York to head the Neuroscience PET laboratory focusing on pharmacological response and PET FDG. In 1998, he published the first report in diffusion tensor imaging in schizophrenia, extending his work on potential deficit the prefrontal cortex in schizophrenia. He is editor of Psychiatry Research and co-editor of Psychiatry Research, Neuroimaging. He has published over 500 research reports in scientific journals, the majority on positron emission tomography. He is included in the Institute of Scientific Information database as one of the most highly cited scientists. On the 10th of August, Üsküdar University Senate cordially and unanimously decided to grant Professor Buxbaum the title of honorary doctorate degree for his valuable contribution to neuroscience studies on global scale and his passionate dedication to the treatments of psychiatric disorders.
So it's my honor to have Professor Buxbaum and Professor Tarhan to the floor to deliver the honorary doctorate degree. So I'm giving the microphone to Monte Buxbaum to share your feelings. You can just hold your
Is the microphone better here?
Whichever you want, sir. The feeler.
Good morning to everyone. I am really honored to be here. I'm honored to be honored by a university that shows a group of students all looking at pictures of the brain on their computer terminals, and to see the wonderful presentation of the university and its role in neuroscience and spreading the neuroscience world globally. And what I'm going to do, I'm supposed to give a keynote address, and this keynote address is a hurrah, a celebration of EEG, the importance of genetics, and the importance of harnessing our new behavioral science tools to help patients with brain diseases. I'm asking my colleagues what I should talk about. My Indian colleague in London said I need to give a pep talk about EEG and genetics. And my colleague in New York said that psychologists in his university are not being taught about genetics at all in reference to mental illness, and not being taught about brain imaging or EEG. And so today I would like to counter that and to celebrate both of those things. I'm honored by the movie which was presented, and some people in the movie who weren't mentioned, whose photographs appeared. Dr. Tonelli, who invited me to Turkey on a number of occasions to meetings in Bursa, and we showed Rosalind Carter, President Carter's wife, who was active in mental health and supporting mental health research. And briefly, there was a picture of my grandfather, who wasn't identified, and he began the family tradition of research with tissue culture research and was published in JAMA in 1907. And this has been a family tradition. One of the things about the tradition that's important, and I'm going to emphasize, is that as instruments evolved, we were able to focus on the physiology of brain and its behavior. So my grandfather had a microscope and looked at tissue sections and developed stains for tissue. My father looked at his microscope and saw tissue cultures and took some of the first phase contrast photographs of the living human cell. But those were the instruments that did not allow us to understand the dynamics of human behavior in the brain. Now we have the EEG, PET scanning, CT, MRI, and we have the ability to look at brain function. And this is the great success of the last half century and what I'm going to talk about. So we have some slides, I think.
Probably Professor Han will share his feelings first, and we will be opening your presentation.
Just, can everyone hear me in here? Great.
No, your presentation will be starting after Professor Han's talk.
I want a small speech. I want to thank you for participation in our honorary doctorate program. And today is very, today, 2 years is very important for us because our Republic of Turkish Republic, the 100th anniversary of the Republic this year. And this BaCI Congress, BaCI meetings is same years. Is very beautiful coincidence, I think, a beautiful chance. And for we live neuroscience revolution. During the neuroscience revolution, in neuroscience revolution, there are a lot of contribution, a lot of science, but Dr. Buchbaum is pioneer of the contribution of the neuroscience. We read his articles and a lot of books and for neuroimaging and EEG using techniques. We read their literature contribution. For this reason, we all know your contribution. I congratulate your participation and contribution of the science. Thank you very much.
So I'll be happy to have our Senate members and all international researchers to the floor for the Senate, for the annual doctorate degree. So I'll be happy to have you all here. Kıymetli hocam, bir doktora töreni sonrası fotoğrafımız için, aile fotoğrafı için Senat üyelerimizi de aramızda görmek isteriz. So we will be happy to have you all here, dear valued international guests. Okay, thank you.
And you.
And your talk is starting
What?
now. So you can use the pointer to go next.
Here.
Yeah, and
Here.
previous slide. No, this
Here.
one is for
All right,
pointing,
great.
next and fly.
This pep talk is called A Century of Progress because we're only about 11 months from the centenary of the discovery of the electroencephalogram by Berger. And so, in looking back, this is a personal view of the science and activities that I've had. And as you can see from the video that you saw, which I thought was rather clever, it showed how many different